Hey guys, today we're going to continue reading Ranger in Time. We are up to chapter 7. Who's the Doctor? Lily and May weren't the only ones looking for help. Horses, carts, and carriages clogged the entrance to the pavilion, waiting to drop off the injured. Ranger stayed close to the girls as they pulled Lee's wagon through the crowd. This new place felt too smoky and crowded to be safe. Whenever Lily and May paused, Ranger stepped up to the wagon and nuzzled Lee's hand. Sometimes the boy stirred and put his hand on Ranger's head, but more and more often he didn't seem to notice. "Over here," Lily said. They pulled the wagon inside and she gasped. The wooden building swarmed with doctors and nurses. Red Cross women rushed along with carts and supplies. Hundreds of mattresses crowded the floor, all full of people hurting. Some had burns from the fire. Others had head injuries and broken bones. Maybe they'd been trapped like Lee. "Excuse me," May called out to a nurse rushing past, but her voice got lost in the chaos. Ranger raced in front of the nurse and barked. The nurse whirled around. "Whose dog is this?" "Please," Lily rushed up to the woman. "My friend's brother is hurt. I think his leg is broken and his breathing is all strange and shallow." The nurse's face softened, and she seemed to forget about Ranger. She knelt beside Lee and put a hand on his forehead. Then she picked up his wrist and held it for a moment. "He's in shock," she said, and looked around. Nearby, two men were lifting a skinny man from one of the mattresses. His body was limp. As they carried him to a corner of the building, the nurse pointed to the empty space. "Come along with me." They lifted Lee onto the mattress and covered him with a wool blanket. "We need to keep him warm until a doctor's free to tend to his leg," the nurse said. "Who made the splint?" "I did." Lily looked down. Poor Lee had been bounced halfway through the city with her messy work barely holding his leg in place. She'd done a terrible job and waiting for the nurse to tell her. "You did a fine job," the nurse said quickly. "I could tell you didn't have much to work with, but you kept the bone in place. Stay with him for now. I'll send a doctor when I can." And she hurried off into the crowd. Soon a woman in a long dark dress walked up to Lee's mattress. "I understand your brother's leg is broken," she said. "Yes," May said. "Another nurse already sent for a doctor. We're waiting for him." "For her?" the woman said. She knelt beside the mattress, opened a small leather bag, and pulled out a stethoscope. "I'm the doctor. Tell me what happened." Lily stared for a moment. "How was he hurt?" the doctor asked again. Lily snapped out of her wandering. "He was trapped when the market roof caved in." The doctor nodded. She pressed the end of the stethoscope to Lee's chest and listened. "Is he all right?" May asked. "I think he will be," the doctor said. She pulled back the blanket and gently unwrapped the sheet that held Lily's splint in place. With a sharp knife, she cut off Lee's cotton shoe and sliced his trouser leg up the seam. "I'm going to straighten your leg now," she said quietly. Lee cried out in pain, and Lily had to look away. Her eyes burned with tears and the mattresses and hurrying people all blurred together. Finally, the doctor said, "All right, I've set the bone, splinted it, and given him something to help him rest. Once the fires are under control, we'll see about moving to a proper hospital." She sighed, and Lily could tell she wasn't sure when that might happen. "Thank you," May said. The doctor nodded and hurried off to another patient. May turned to Lily then. "And thank you," she said. "If you hadn't helped me—" I shook her head and pressed her lips together. "But you probably need to go. Won't someone be looking for you?" "Probably," Lily hesitated, not sure how much May knew about her. "I live at the mission house now. Lomo has 50 girls, so she won't have time to worry much about me. I'll stay with you to keep your brother company." "I'd like that," May said. She looked down at Lee, sleeping now, and stroked his wispy black hair. Then she looked back up at Lily. "You must miss your family. I mean, you have a new family at the house with." "Not really," Lily said. "We're cared for, but—" It was hard to explain. Lily's memories of her real family had faded in the years since she left China, but the hole in her heart was still there. She reached down to pet the fluffy golden dog and that seemed to have adopted her. It was the closest thing to a friend she'd had in a long time. May was starting to feel like a friend, too. Lily didn't want to think about leaving her and going back to the mission house. Ranger was glad to be out of the busy, dusty streets. His paws were sore and he was tired. He leaned into Lily's hand and closed his eyes, but then he caught a scent that made his nose twitch. Ranger sat up straight and sniffed the musty pavilion air. The smelt of blood and sweat and smoke. Stronger and thicker than before. The fire was closer than it had been. Ranger looked around, but no one seemed concerned. "What's the matter, dog?" Lily said, staring at him. Ranger left her. He hurried up and down the rows of mattresses until he found where the smoke was strongest. Then he barked and barked until he was surrounded by doctors and nurses. Finally, someone shouted over the crowd, "The roof is on fire."